seeing our defense take the next step.
Yes.
We over the last 3 years, we've been stockpiling a lot of hyper athletic pieces, such as Bud Dupree and Ryan Shazier, and even Stephon Tuitt, who, for his size, has been all over the field. Um, Last year, we bolstered our secondary a lot, getting two starters, Sean Davis and Artie Burns. And now we've got the younger brother to J.J. Watt. We've got uh, Cameron Sutton, who could provide a lot of great coverage in the nickel and potentially make that move to the outside.
And return punts.
Yeah, we've got people that have been waiting in line, such as Vince Williams, and we've got leaders like Cam Hayward and Mike Mitchell. So at this point, the defense, like they have the pieces in place. The young pieces aren't gonna. They're in a good place because they're not gonna get propelled to the starting role unless they earn it, right?
Mm-hmm.
T.J. Watt arguably has earned that starting spot at this point. I know Joey Porter kind of jumped the gun, but I tend to agree with him. Like I think T.J. Watt has shown at least during this preseason that he's ready to play. He's ready to ball out. I mean, he still might not be able to cover a wheel route in the Big Ten championship,
Oh,
but
he'll never shake that off.
but he is what impresses me the most is his motor. His motor is out of this world, and that's exactly what you need from a young guy. James Harrison, to his testament, still has a very high motor, but in order to save his stamina and his body, uh, making that T.J. Watt pick at the very first, with our very first pick of the draft, was crucial. And so I really, really need to see the Steelers defense step up, especially the secondary.
And Zach, obviously the pieces are in place, like Will said. Everything is there. But what are the chances of them actually coming through and staying healthy, first and foremost, and actually contributing? Because Exhibit A right now, Ross Cockrell is in a dogfight with Cody Sensabaugh for that second cornerback spot, and because Cockrell got burned a little bit against the Falcons.
Yeah, that's. I mean, I can't say it any better than the two of you did. You know, you've covered all, the basics of what do the Steelers need to do. They need to stay healthy. That's always, I mean, gosh, that's been an issue for the past 6-7 years. And it starts with Ben, keeping Ben healthy. That offensive line is top 3, if not top 2. That is one of the best groups in the NFL. And, there was a lot of growing pains years ago, but now they are solidified, and they locked up Villanueva for a little longer. And you have depth. You have Finney, and you have the rest of those guys that are just waiting. You have Hawkins, who they drafted 4th round last year. So those guys. So even if an offensive lineman goes down, they have options. Now they have options at running back. I thought the James Conner pick was, sensational. It was absolutely sensational. And especially with Le'Veon Bell, his situation and the contract holdout, Connor's the right guy to replace him. Now, I don't expect Connor to get all those touches right out of the gate. That's what Antonio Brown's for. I mean, Eli Rogers was reliable or respectable at the least. You bring in Jesse James. So they do have a lot of, you have your top tier in Bell and Brown, and then you have a lot of respectable weapons from there. There's no like 1A, 1B. It's a pretty far sizable gap between 1 and 2 on the Steelers offense. But hopefully the killer bees can come together and make it happen once they all get on the field together. And then on defense, I just like that they have the depth now is what I'm really trying to, hone into, is that, they have all these options. The fact that they can have Sensabaugh compete with Cockrell and kind of push them to be better. They have Sutton, even though he's injured. All these guys, you just finally have the depth that you need. Defensive line, linebacker. Apparently they're going with a 2-man rotation now at linebacker, or it's not going to be a rotation anymore. It's just going to be your starters with Bud Dupree and T.J. Watt, and I'm not upset at that at all. If a guy tries to scramble to his blind side, if he's a right-handed QB, T.J. Watt's going to be right there to meet him. And I think Shazier's going to get better. So there's just a lot of positives in this group. I think like my player to watch is Bud Dupree. I mean, that's pretty obvious, but he is definitely going to be a breakout player. Like I'm talking like 15 sacks or something.
Oh, that's high praise.
That is whoa. I mean, granted, when he got in last season, he was an absolute monster. He missed like 2/3 of the season, but when when he got in, he contributed so much to that defense, and I mean we saw exactly what he did um, during that Miami Dolphins playoffs game. I mean that is crazy. And JP, you're pulling up something right now. What do you have to say about that?
Okay, Zach, 15 sacks. I hope you understand what territory you just put Bud Dupree in. James Harrison, when he won Player of the Year on defense in 2008, he had 16 sacks, and that was considered like his best career year. So Zach Seyko is predicting a Bud Dupree rising to James Harrison like Defensive Player of the Year.
Yep, that's if he stays on the field, he's going to average just about a sack per game. You watch it. You got to look at guys how they perform down the stretch of the season when they either get an increase in playing time or their team's like 5-10 and it's week 17 and they're like, all right, go out there and do your thing. Like look at Zach Ertz for example on the Eagles. I think he has the capabilities to be the number one tight end in the NFL. And that's, I mean, Rob Gronkowski, you can't trust his health. I know Travis Kelce's very, very good, but it's going to be those three battling for the number one spot. And Zach Ertz performing down the stretch had over 100 yards in the last 3 weeks each game for the Eagles with a rookie quarterback. And that's saying something. So kind of the same with Bud Dupree. You saw him, just that motor, the speed. The guy is 6'4", 260, and the speed he has on the field is absolutely insane. I love when the Steelers draft guys who are just freak athletes. They are just freak athletes, and they come in and they mold them, with the football skills and intangibles they need because you can't teach athleticism. You can't teach athleticism. And the Steelers are just so good at getting those guys that are just pure, their work ethic, they're athletes, and then here, we're going to get you and, fine tune your mechanics, and that's what they do best, so they know how to draft every single time. The Ben, the Le'Veon Bell, all of that, they just get these guys who are just straight athletes, and they're just, okay, we're going to make sure your football skills are up to snuff in 2 to 3 years. I mean, look at Cameron Hayward. Didn't blossom the first 2 years. Boom, that third, fourth year became one of the best leaders and defensive ends in the NFL, or at least for a 3-4's case.
Welcome to Pittsburgh Steelers, where we expect a lot out of our players, and a lot of things are very very high praise and a lot of high expectations this year for the Steelers on defense. Offensively, before we go to break, a couple things.
Let's address the elephant.
Let's address the elephant in the room. Le'Veon Bell. Now, this man has not practiced with the Steelers since before OTAs and minicamp. This guy is holding out and seems to have a really fun time doing it. If you follow him on Snapchat like I do, you'll notice he is in Miami right now. He's been training extensively. I'll give him that. He's been keeping up with his health and regimen, but he's not doing any football-related like running back drills or anything in pads at all. He's just doing a lot of strength training and a lot of cardio training, and also making SoundCloud music videos. So clearly, this is a guy who seemed very, very just mad at the world almost. He seems mad at the world that brought him into the stardom that he's in now. And the way I feel about it is he's just going to keep doing the Steelers in detriment if he stays out for this long. He's going to burn some bridges. He's going to make himself. He's going to dig himself a hole. Even though he's Le'Veon Bell and he wants $15 million a year, he hasn't played a full season to show that he deserves it yet. He hasn't played enough or even well enough to even earn $15 million a year. That would make him the highest paid running back in history by far if he gets $15 million a year. My goodness. So that's my concern with Bell. And my ultimate take on this is to show Bell that what he did was wrong and to show that everything has consequences. If I'm the Steelers, if I'm Mike Tomlin, you sit Bell on that bench against the Cleveland Browns. You have James Conner start that game, and you have James Conner get a majority of carries running back. Throw Bell in on third down or whatever, but James Conner is your starter, I think, week 1 in Cleveland. If I'm Mike Tomlin, James Conner is a starter. Will?
Well, you raised some interesting points. Like I said during the break, basically, I'm very indifferent about this Le'Veon Bell situation. At first, I was very angry about it, but I feel like that was a little naive of me because his biggest problem has been staying on the field, whether it's been suspensions or injuries. He is coming off a minor injury from the AFC Championship game, and he has kept himself out of trouble. So he, knowing that, like going into week one, we know that he's going to come in healthy. He's going to come in conditioned because we've seen what he's done, the work that he's put in.
That's one positive. I'll admit that.
Right.
That's one positive.
The only thing that I really have fault with is the fact that um, he caused a distraction for a team that does not need distractions. We had the Martavis Bryant situation. They tried to make a big deal about his and Ben's relationship, and that just proved to be not the case at all. They're on the same page. They've talked it out like men. He had Antonio Brown on Instagram for weeks talking about, hey buddy, let's get this signed, let's get out there and play.
Antonio Brown was cursing on Snapchat, telling Bell to get his you know what at training camp.
Right. And I mean that's kind of distracting as well. As much as I love AB, he doesn't always handle it with the most decorum. But here's the thing, as from a football standpoint, and Marquise Pouncey has touched on this a little bit, like they from a team standpoint, they understand why he did it. Some of them said that they might even do the same thing if they were in the same situation. But from a football standpoint, the man's going to be healthy. He's going to be probably bigger and meaner than he was a season ago. And as much as I would like to teach him a lesson per se, I think that winning is a little more important in that situation. And I wouldn't be surprised if him and James Conner do split carries a little bit, because James Conner has shown just within the last week that he can take a heavy workload, and he's a fast starter too. He comes right out the gate pushing for more and more yards. So Le'Veon Bell, while he was a little bit of a distraction, and of course when you're as a high profile player as he is, the media is going to talk about you. So that aspect was a little disappointing for this offseason, but I think all that's going to go out the window as soon as he straps up again in the Steelers uniform.
And I won't think what I said. If the Steelers are playing New England week 1, I wouldn't say what I just said. But they're playing Cleveland, and Cleveland ends week 1. Give James Conner some carries. Zach?
That's why, I would have to agree with Petrolias on that, because, you want to get James Conner involved in low-pressure situations, short runs, quick screen catches, nothing crazy where it's like, an adjustment route or an option route where, Ben, you get to decide and then Ben has to find, there's not that kind of chemistry yet or that knowledge on James Conner's standpoint. It's all of being a rookie. It happens. But in Le'Veon Bell's case, when we look at, so his agent accepted the $15 million per season, but Bell didn't, and I thought that was strange when that report came out. But looking at the situation with how Bell's situation, he wants to be paid like a number 1 running back and a number 2 wide receiver. Okay, number 2 wide receivers on average make between $5 and $7 million a year, depending on what team you're at, what franchise you're at. Like Eric Decker was making $7 million a year when he was with the Jets in his first 2 seasons. Okay, he was a number 2 receiver. And then there was, number 1 running back. Okay, LaShawn McCoy, I think he's making $9 million, $10 million a year. So if you combine those 2 numbers, that's roughly around what Bell was, gonna get plus incentives. So this is why it's strange. Okay, that if you combine the highest average of both positions, you're gonna get like 17 million per season. Okay, but 15 million is not that far off. And that's way more than what Shady's making. That's way more than what Jeremy Hill's making. I know Jeremy Hill's not that great, but he's making top running back money. It's all these other guys that, are under contract. Adrian Peterson, when he was under contract, they were all making roughly 8, 9, 10 million, as a number 1 running back. And then second receivers make 5, 6, 7, depending on what team you're on. I don't know. Do the math, Bell. It kind of shocks me because this agent's like, whoa, we just got a steal here and they're going to pay you up front. That's great. So that, if the wheels start to fall off in your second and third, in your third year and they cut you, we got a lot of our money up front. Nope. That just wasn't Bell's case.
Le'Veon Bell really did dig himself a hole there. And what I want to ask him is, you want to be paid like number 2 receiver. You do realize the Steelers have a number 2 receiver who's just as good at what he does as what Bell is good at what he does, and Martavis Bryant, when Bryant's healthy in the lineup and contributing. So that's my issue with Bell. And hopefully it is resolved soon. His return, he said in a tweet, is 9/1/17, September 1st, 2017. Let's hope he sticks to that, because if he doesn't, and if he doesn't, comes back and plays poorly, there's going to be a Yinzer firestorm, a media firestorm that you have, the likes of which you have never seen before, and it'll make you very, very glad, even more glad than you already were, that the Steelers drafted James Conner.
I want to clarify something real quick. I looked up Jeremy Hill's contract. He's not making top running back money. That was my mistake. He's still on his rookie deal.
All right, well, your point still stands. AP and Shady McCoy made like $9-10 million max. Bell wants $15 million. Pass. We'll take a break. When we come back, we're bringing a little dooming and glooming on Pittsburgh Sound. We're talking about the Pittsburgh Pirates. All right, boys. Let's power through this one. Pittsburgh Sound on Com Radio.
We are strong.
No copyright. We're not doing copyrights. But yeah, I'm glad I looked that up. I was like, wait, I don't think the Bengals, I don't think they extended Jeremy Hill, because that's why they drafted Joe Mixon, because Jeremy Hill is just not that great. But and then looking at Shady's contract is actually it is $9 million per season. When he signed the extension with the Bills after he got traded from the Eagles, he started making the 5 years, $45 million, $9 million per year this season. So Shady McCoy, I think, is the highest paid running back right now. Adrian Peterson's with the Saints. He got that new deal. I think he's only making like $3-4 million a year. Only, yeah. I'd love to make that money but I don't know if I'd do it playing football. Regardless, though, the point is Le'Veon Bell, $15 million a year, man. That's a lot of money. That's $5-6 million up on Shady. And Shady does all the same stuff as Bell. I would argue Bell's better, but Shady has the injury problems. He has, he does the same thing. He catches passes and he runs the ball effectively. He's another weapon. He's basically the number 1 receiver now that Sammy Watkins is out. So that's something to keep in mind. You look at Shady. I'm pretty sure Shady would want to make more money, and I'd probably pay Shady like $11 million a year. But in Bell's case, to argue that he's not making enough with the new contract is pretty ridiculous. That's just about as much as Antonio Brown got. And Antonio Brown has no negatives about him outside of his size. I'd want a 6'4" receiver instead of a 5'10", but since Antonio Brown makes up for it with work ethic, just spirit, heart, ability, that's what gets it done. And that's why he deserved the contract that he did when he signed the new extension. So, Bell, you get hurt, man. You're really digging your own, really digging your own grave there. We back. I'm just going to keep that lowered because I don't want any copyrights.
Zach, you read out one thing on that bump. This is Pittsburgh Sound on Com Radio, but unfortunately you weren't right about the believing in the Pirates.
I said back in the spring that this team was average at best.
Yeah.
So I was right about that. We just did the bump because it's that was just a fun bump to do for Pittsburgh, for the Pittsburgh Sound.
Let's clarify something, Mr. Seyko, while we can. Back when we were making season predictions.
No, don't bring this up.
Mr. John Petrolias was very, very high on this.
Adamant. He was adamant.
And we tried to tell him that this team was average at best.
Average at best.
So I'm glad you came back to earth, buddy, because Zach and I saw this coming. This has definitely been it hasn't been the worst season I've ever seen from the Pirates, but it's definitely been disappointing.
Can I please just start my rant right now? It's not going to be long, but it's really about their ineffectiveness at the trade deadline.
Let's go.
This team knew that they knew that they weren't playoff contenders because okay, so look at Starling Marte's situation. We have to start right there. Okay, so he comes back from the 80-game suspension. You're within it. Okay, so you're within, what, 5 games, 6 games of first place right when Marte comes back. Okay. Now, picture yourself as that same team in the playoffs because Marte is not eligible for the postseason. So you already have to factor that in is, man, when we get to the playoffs, are we going to be able to beat the Dodgers? No. The Nationals? No. The Cubs? No. So that should have already factored in right there. Man, we shouldn't try to make a run this year. Yet they really went, they kind of just stood pat again. They traded away Tony Watson. They picked up Joaquin Benoit because Rivero's the new guy. I love Rivero. A great season by him. But that ineffectiveness at the trade deadline, there were plenty of teams that would have wanted McCutchen. There were plenty, I'm pretty sure the Indians would have wanted him, the Red Sox, whatever. The Indians had to go out and get Jay Bruce. I'm pretty sure they would have given up the farm, like a Bradley Zimmer or something like that, for McCutchen. There were plenty. Garrett Cole, he is not going to sign long-term with the Pirates. He wants $200 million, 8 years, wherever, probably with the Dodgers. And if you talk the Dodgers into getting some of those pitching prospects back instead of them going out and getting Yu Darvish, man, would that have been a smart trade to do. But no, they still didn't want to do that. So now guys that are not going to be as effective coming up in the season. I mean, Garrett Cole could be better next year. He's been playing pretty down this year, but I just think him and the managerial staff aren't getting together. Him and the front office aren't getting together because they don't want to pay him, and he's going to walk whenever his arbitration's up. McCutchen, this is probably going to be his final, last MVP caliber season. He's been great. He's not trying to overwork himself. He's found his groove again, but age is going to catch up to you at some point, and you could have gotten a nice haul that would have been a nice pull that would have been able to build around Josh Bell, who's going to be great. Starling Marte is going to be consistent. Gregory Polanco, when he finally stays healthy. I mean, these guys, if you built around them and traded away, say, Garrett Cole, Cervelli, Watson, McCutchen, and all those prospects, when they were starting to get into their groove and you get those quality veterans that are, Polanco, Marte, they would have been World Series contenders in 3 to 4 years. Now, if they try this again next season and McCutchen's batting 270, 260, Garrett and the teams know that they're trying to unload these guys, they're not going to get the same price. They're not going to get the same package back. So this is going to haunt them 3 to 5 years from now, depending on what they do to save themselves and possibly the winter meetings. If they trade McCutchen at the winter meetings, that is the only thing they can do to save themselves. I'd even argue to trade Josh Harrison too. It's not that I don't like Harrison. I think he's proven, but this group of guys that you have locked up, Marte, Polanco, and then Bell's going to be, in his prime when they're World Series again. Get those young guys who are going to be coming up, and you don't have to sign to huge contracts that eat up your salary. Right. They're just not doing it right.
They really aren't. And I can definitely buy. So, Zach, what you're saying is you wanted the Pirates to sell.
Almost everything. I want them to sell Cole because he's not going to be in Pittsburgh, McCutchen because he's old, Harrison because you can get those extra pieces, and then
I heard teams even wanted David Freese. Why wouldn't you? Yeah. Why wouldn't you sell David Freese?
David Freese has absolutely no future here, and I totally agree. But here's what I'm going to add: they could have sold everybody. They could have sold everybody, and I'd be okay with it because of the return we would have gotten from McCutchen, Cole, Freese, Harrison.
Especially right now because the playoff race is so tight.
Yes.
Because teams like the Nationals, how do we compete with the Dodgers? This is our year, but they're 12 games ahead of us in terms of the pennant stand or the league standings. How do we compete with them? Well, let's go get a superstar. All right, we'll give up what we need to. We could have probably gotten Victor Robles this time around.
Absolutely. But there was also another option. This team could have bought, too. This team could have sold assets and bought at a deadline, and I was convinced they were going to do that when they swept Milwaukee at home and pulled within 2 games and then beat Colorado, went over 500 for the first time in God knows how long. So when that happened, I thought, man, okay, this team's finally turning a corner. Then Polanco gets hurt, okay. But when that happened, when they lost 2 or 3 in Colorado and had that god-awful road trip out west where they lost 2 or 3 to San Fran and 2 or 3 to San Diego, I thought, man, this is the end of the Pirates for this year because their true colors showed, but more importantly, the front office didn't do anything. I understand that Bob Nutting is the root of the problem, but the roots still grow branches and trees, and the tree Bob Nutting is the root of the problem, and this year especially, Neil Huntington was the tree trunk. He couldn't sustain his team by making good deals. only deal he made at the deadline was for Joaquin Benoit. And Joaquin Benoit is turning into a dumpster fire.
He's 40.
And he's 40. And there's absolutely no reason why there's none. No reason why to get a player like that if you call yourselves contenders. And Huntington said, I remember hearing he told Greg Brown, when Brown asked about Neil Walker, when Neil Walker went to the Brewers, he said, oh yeah, we looked at Neil Walker and we considered, but we were fine with our options right now. Who do you have right now? You have Josh Harrison, okay, he's an all-star. He was a token all-star, like Evan Meek in 2010. He was a token all-star.
Or Jason Bay.
Jason, do not speak ill of Jason Bay on this show in my presence. Do not speak ill of Jason Bay on this show.
What about Jeff Locke?
Jeff Locke was not an all-star. I'll agree with that, but
he was like 9-2. Wait a second. He actually put an all-star campaign together. I don't care if you're bad now.
He put together an all-star first half of the campaign.
Exactly. Yeah, that's. It's like, okay, we can't consider Aaron Judge, a beast because he's going through a slump right now. No, he was.
I mean, Aaron Judge, yeah. I mean, he's a rookie.
But Jeff Locke was, he was really. I mean, he had it together for just that first 81 games, and then, yep.
Poor. Moral of the story is for this season that they really could have fought at that point. And like you said, Zach, they would have known that Marte was going to be out for the playoffs. They needed an outfielder. Polanco's injury prone. Who got traded and recently? Who got traded? Jay Bruce for a player to be named later. Curtis Granderson, who just got finished destroying the Pirates this last series. Player to be named later. And Neil Walker, who could help alleviate some depth issues for like a player named later in cash. Literally, the Mets gave away those three. I knew they would too. I had a feeling those three guys would be on the move at some point, and sure enough, they were. The moves to get George Contos off waivers and trade for Sean Rodriguez, those ended up being better moves than what they did at the actual non-waiver trade deadline. And it's infuriating because this team does have the pieces. They have enough pieces that can sustain a run, but they need help. They need supplements. And so now, I'm asking you about this. We're going to run through the negatives of this season and the positives. And let's see what outweighs the other ones for next year, because this year is now a wash. When next month rolls around, the 40-man roster comes up, get guys some reps, because this season is officially a wash. Let's go through negatives and positives with you here, Will. Negatives. The prospect pool is becoming razor thin again because the guys that we thought were going to be good coming up, and they're coming to fruition. Some of them are, some of them are not. Alan Hansen was a bust. Tyler Glasnow hasn't pitched in the Major League Baseball since May. Ivan Nova has regressed to his mean. Chad Kuhl is meh. Tony Watson did not play well. He finally regressed also, and he came out of Pittsburgh because of it. Jung Ho Kang may never see pro baseball in the U.S. or even visit the U.S. ever again in his life. The PEDs really hurt Marte big time, and it's returned into a throwaway year. Polanco's left hamstrings made of Tic Tacs and whatever they eat for dessert in the Dominican Republic. And our only all-star was a guy who would ride the bench on every team over 500 in baseball. And the unfortunate fact that John Jaso is still on the Pittsburgh Pirates. Those are the negatives of this season. Positives. Trevor Williams is a dog. He is the man. If the one thing you need to see with Trevor Williams is exactly what he did in the last game against the Dodgers when he pitched against Rich Hill, who went perfect. People are going to forget this, but Williams went stride for stride with Rich Hill. Just because he wasn't perfect doesn't mean he
against the Dodgers.
Against
the Dodgers.
Against the best team of our lifetime, probably.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
This team was ridiculous.
It was ridiculous. So, Trevor Williams, I give him props for that. Kutch, like you said, Zach, is Kutch again. And he proved that, and if we trade him at winter meetings, like you said, we could get something for him still. It's our last chance to do that. Felipe Rivero is what his player's classic jersey says, nightmare. George Contos turned out to be pretty dependable. Josh Bell is your first baseman for the next 6 years. I love Elias Diaz, a catcher. He's going to be great. And Cole, I thought, bounced back very nicely. And Jameson Taillon, both those guys, they are your true aces that just don't get enough run support, and I think are managed poorly by Clint Hurdle. Both of them bounced back from their woes nicely. So, Will, let's weigh these. Positives, negatives. Positive for the future, negative for now. Would you agree with that?
Definitely. And you also have to add on Adam Frazier into that positive list.
Felipe Rivero, closer for the next 4 years.
That's right.
Basically, I knew this season was going to be crappy, and I agree with everything you guys said. Like, they needed to trade, they didn't, and So I don't know how much faith I have in our front office to get the job done.
I have none, by the way.
So, as far as the future looking bright, it's bright in what we have going right now. It could get a lot brighter depending on how well that they make these moves, because this is just, it's ridiculous at this point. Like, the reason why teams get crappy is because their front office is unwilling to make necessary moves. The Steelers aren't normally crappy because they're willing to part ways with, even though they have players that have been stalwart players. I'm talking Troy Polamalu. I'm talking Hines Ward.
James Harrison.
Lawrence Timmons.
Lawrence Timmons. These guys served their purpose, and the Steelers acknowledged them for it and gave an ultimatum.
Mm-hmm.
This is exactly what needs to happen with Andrew McCutchen. This is exactly what needs to happen with a lot of these guys. With David Freese, and they didn't even have the same type of production that we're talking about, like with Josh Harrison. So, Pirates front office, I'm begging you, please do the right thing, like Spike Lee said. Do the right thing.
Yes.
Because the thing with the Pirates is they always say we can be World Series contenders. We can be World Series contenders, and it seems like their goal is just to sell tickets. To keep those, the homegrown guys who everyone loves. I know, and that's not a bad thing to try to keep the guys who the fans just absolutely adore, Andrew McCutchen, Josh Harrison, etc. Keep them, Cervelli, keep them around as long as they can, as they can be productive. Okay, the Steelers tried to do it too, with Troy Polamalu, but they said, hey, you're not the same. And so they parted ways. But the Pirates just I think they are strictly content with going 81-81 every season, just so long as they sell a decent amount of tickets. It worked because I want to say it worked the few seasons ago, when they were winning 97 games, 90 games, not because of their hitting. They've never been a good hitting team. It's always been their pitching.
Yes.
Their pitching. And now that there's such a gap because the veterans like A.J. Burnett couldn't throw anymore. He retired. They haven't been able to supplement those guys who are awesome veteran arms, Melanson, A.J. Burnett, just to name the couple. Guys like Tony Watson just kind of burst up in flames. You have Rivero. Rivero's the only bright spot, though. Cole, we kind of thought he was going to, at least I thought he was going to be emerge as the true ace and that this was his time to shine. He didn't get injured this year. I don't know what his deal is. But thank goodness for guys like Trevor Williams. You have people like Mitch Keller still in the minors. I'm praying for Tyler Glasnow. I still think he has potential, especially next year. It's just control issues.
Yeah,
Once he gets his control down, he is untouchable.
Glasnow, Kingham, Keller. I'm very excited for those guys.
And then you still have Tyon. Tyon being able to come back from cancer, surgery, and he had 4.5 ERA or 4.6, whatever it is it's at right now. It's still very respectable. I mean, the guy's been through so much. I think Tommy John, hernia surgery, cancer. My goodness, and he's still 25, 24, 25?
Yeah,
and he's
tough, I'll tell you that much.
Been through all of it, and he's the number 2 guy in the rotation. It could be number 1, just depending on, how he moves forward in terms of his development. But man, nothing will make him step back and say, you know what, maybe baseball's not for me. He keeps pursuing. So at some point, the Pirates just got to say, what is our goal? Is our goal to, please the fans, or is it really to bring home a World Series? Or is it just to kind of keep them, keep the fans content, keep the city of Pittsburgh content? Everybody loves Andrew McCutchen. Everybody does. But he's not, it's a shame to say, but we have to acknowledge it. He's not going to win a World Series in his time with the Pirates.
No, he won't. And it's really unfortunate to say that because when he first came up, I remember he was going to be the savior. He was going to be the guy that took the Pirates back to the glory days.
He was close. He almost did it by himself. He really, really did.
He really did. You're absolutely right. And he had a little bit of help, but Kutch was the guy. Unfortunately, his days in Pittsburgh look more and more numbered now than ever. So we'll take a break, and when we come back, your Pittsburgh Penguins could win the Stanley Cup again. They really could. As somebody who watched this team closely, especially at development camp, we'll get more into this when we get back from the break. But the Penguins they're a little loaded underneath. Pittsburgh Sound, Com Radio.
Want to stay informed on the latest news?
No copyright strikes. Okay. So yeah, I don't have anything more to add with the Pirates. In terms with Bell, I had a bunch of stuff to say, but couldn't totally get to it. With the Pirates though, the Pirates, I mean, they got to trade Andrew McCutchen. I love Andrew McCutchen. I love Garrett Cole. They just would be better off at other places. And the thing with that is they need young guys because especially when they have a salary cap the way they do, the Pirates just don't. We're already back. Oh, wait. No copyright.
Penguins could win the Stanley Cup again next year, and that will be the third time in a row. Three-peat. Dare I say three-peat, said Mike Sullivan at the parade. And gentlemen, uh, here's why I think so. Daniel Sprong, who you remember 2 years ago, had a brief stint in the pros, who has a great shot. He, I think, is a legitimate top six winger. When I watched him at development camp this summer, this guy lived. He pitched a tent and lived rent free right below the crossbar. He went bar down on every shot he took, and it was beautiful, beautiful to see. Zach Aston Reese, he's a workhorse. He's a force to reckon with. He won the Hobie Baker by scratching and clawing his way to the. I'm sorry, he was a nominee for Hobie Baker. Excuse me. He was a nominee by scratching and clawing his way to the front of the net and just getting those dirty goals. Love that kid. And he'll see some NHL time this year, if not to begin the season. He may get a half season in the pros. You lose Fleury to Vegas. We knew that was coming. Chris Kunitz, he's 37. We're not going to pay him. Nick Bonino wanted too much money for his role with us. And surprised to see Matt Cullen resign with Minnesota, but again, not really. He's from Minnesota. The core, though, is in place for the future. Sid, Gino, Phil, Letang, Gensel, Woot, Matt Murray, Brian Dumlin, Oli Mata, Justin Schultz, Connor Sheary, Ryan Rust, Patrick Hornqvist. That is a great core that's at least in place through the next year and beyond. Connor Sheary, Dumlin, and Schultz all re-signed to, I think, reasonable contracts. Sheary getting $3 million a year, Dumlin $4 million, Schultz $5.5 million, all for their contribution. That's great. My question for you guys is: there's still one glaring hole on this team for next season. That is the third line center. What do they do about that? Jim Rutherford is the GM. Rutherford is saying he has trade options. He's had trade options and that they are in place, but we'll wait until his options get cheaper. I personally think Carl Hagelin looks like trade bait to me. He's making $4 million a year, and for his role, he was on the fourth line to end the playoffs last year, and he's making $4 million a year with 2 more left on his deal. I think another team could use his services better than we can and give space for other young players to come up because Carl Hagelin, he's got speed, but he's kind of like the Mike Wallace of the Penguins, kind of a length pony, you know.
Wow.
And that's my take on that. I think they will trade Hagelin for third line center type talent, but like a straight up swap. But other than that, this team looks poised to really take charge. And adding Ryan Reeves would give this team a bit of grit too in that fourth line. I'm looking forward to seeing him. Gentlemen, how do you assess this offseason? Because it's very hard to three-peat, but gosh, they're doing all the right things.
I assess it by saying like this was the status quo. Like pretty much every move that happened, I was expecting. Um, I heard some grumbles about Kunitz leaving, but like you said, he's old. He is now a four-time Stanley Cup champion.
Four-time Stanley Cup champion.
I mean, what more do you want from him? And this is after the fact that people were saying that like, oh, he needs to leave, and we need to get rid of him. So that was expected. We also lost Trevor Daley.
Yes. Yes.
To the Red Wings. I would have liked to see him stay, but what can you do? I think that the trade options could be pretty good. We'll see if they can maybe get something from a lower tier team like a Colorado or maybe even like a Buffalo. I don't know. I haven't looked into it enough to know like who teams are offering up and who's on their trade blocks. But I think that how can you not have faith in Jim Rutherford at this point? Like he has created 2 Stanley Cup championship teams, and this is after pretty much upbirding a absolute dumpster fire, like Pirates dumpster fire. Back when Johnston was leading this team.
Oh my gosh.
So,
oh boy.
Rutherford will get the job done. If not, we're probably going to have someone pretty young taking over those bottom two lines, and the Penguins will adapt like they always do.
The worst case scenario, and add to that for third line center, Jake Gensel and Brian Rust are both natural centers. They could play that. They also they signed a prospect Adam Johnson to an entry level deal. They liked him a lot from development camp. He's making the league max for rookies on two-way deals, same as Gensel. So that's also an option. They have options down there if they need them. But if you want to contend for a cup, obviously you want to be as good as you can be. You want to have that NHL veteran presence there for a third line center, which Bonino fit perfectly, but won too much money. Zach, what do you think?
Yeah, I was going to say Bonino, him leaving really did affect the Penguins down there, especially when you get to the third and fourth lines. But they have a lot of youth, as you pointed out, and I'm very excited to see guys like Gensel, just to capitalize on what they did in the Stanley Cup playoffs, because that was absolutely incredible what he did. I think he set the record for most goals by a rookie in playoffs. Yeah, so Jake Gensel, guys like that. I mean, you can look towards hopefully Olli Mata can stay healthy. Really, that would be nice. That would shore up the defense a little bit, so then they can just focus on that third line center. And like you guys said, I think a veteran presence would make the most sense until the young guys can get up to speed. But since I think someone like Hagelin, since he's lower on the line, they have a lot of depth at the wing. You can ship him out.
Absolutely, and again, options abound for the Penguins because the youth is there. If your youth is there and you have a prospect pool, you have options. They have plenty of options, and really excited to see what the Penguins do this coming fall. But for now, first and foremost, it's Steeler time. So we're looking forward to the Steelers' third preseason game that's coming up this weekend, and of course, Week 1 in Cleveland coming up in September. So that's gonna do it for our first show today. We'll end on saying one more thing. Just list off. I saw a question today on Twitter. Name 4 athletes you want to have dinner with. Dead or alive, one from each major sport. I'll go first. For baseball, Roberto Clemente. For football, Troy Polamalu. Basketball, Giannis Antetokounmpo because he's Greek, obviously, and Gordie Howe for hockey because he is Mr. Hockey. So, gentlemen.
Yeah, I'll take Phil Kessel.
Ooh,
From the NHL. Take Antonio Brown, obviously.
Yes.
From the NFL, I'll take Russell Westbrook.
Okay.
From the NBA, he's by far my favorite player, and I'll take a legend. I'll take Muhammad Ali.
Muhammad Ali?
Yeah.
Okay. Zach?
Andrew McCutcheon. Football's tough, man. There's a lot of guys that you could just really want to talk to, but I'd say Hines Ward to keep it in Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
Hockey, man. That's we'll skip hockey for now. Basketball would probably be LeBron James. Just a huge fan of him, and then. For hockey, I'd pick almost any of the star Penguins, Evgeny or Sidney Crosby. There's, or I guess Wayne Gretzky. Wayne Gretzky.
Yeah, Gretzky obviously.
Since he's tops,
Yeah. Oh, actually, he's the second best player of all time to Mario Lemieux, but that's a bit different.
That's another conversation.
More about that on next week's show. So that'll do it for us here on Pittsburgh Sound. First show back. Many, many, many more every Friday at 2 here on Com Radio. Please join us alongside Zach Seyko and Will Price. I'm John Petrolias. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been Pittsburgh Sound on Com Radio.
All right. Glad everyone who tuned in. We got every Friday, 2 to 3. And then my other show, we don't have a name for it yet, but it's going to be with my buddy Matt Harvey, 3 to 4. So I'm in the studio every Friday from now on, starting next Friday, for 2 hours. 2 to 3, 3 to 4. All right. Catch me later, and I'll catch you guys later.